Alright, so how powerful is the light in comparison to other forces? We know that there are many different forces in the WoW universe, death, the void, and light being some of the major ones. Well, we could also say life. What about order? What about chaos? Maybe list all 6 of them, not just 3. Some of the major ones. There's literally just 6. There's not many different forces in the WoW universe. There are 6. Literally 6. It's on the cosmological map. Do we have any examples of how powerful the light really is? Any in-game or lore references would be appreciated. Mun Moon Pat, 2 hours ago, asked this in Warcraft lore. Okay, so we don't really need in-game references in order to answer this question, because this question is literally answered by Steve Denuser in one of his interviews. I believe the interview may have been with SA Gamer, but it could also have been one of the French websites that interviewed him. But in the interview, they did ask him about the different cosmological forces, and he basically responded that there is no difference in terms of power level between the cosmological forces, even though from a sort of logical perspective, I would argue that death is more powerful than any of the other forces, just because when any of the other forces goes to war against death, death ultimately grows, right? The more killing there is, the more death grows, and so it would be very difficult to defeat death for that specific reason. But according to him, the different cosmological forces exist to keep each other in check. So they're constantly fighting with one another, constantly trying to sort of one-up one another, pushing one another down. And if one of the forces becomes a little bit too powerful, you'll oftentimes find what's the word I'm looking for? Alliances. So they'll actually enter into alliances with one another in order to. So let's say, for example, the light became too powerful and did sort of start upsetting the balance. Then you could see order and life team up to push the light down, back down to where the light can no longer interfere. Now, as for power level at the moment, my argument would actually 100% be that the light may be one of the weakest of all of the cosmological forces. But my reasons for this is because of its one-track minded nature. The light seems incapable of adapting, and it seems to be the only cosmological force that cannot adapt to any situation that does not fall within its one truth. Now, in my opinion, that would make you weaker, not stronger. Yes, it gives you a lot of conviction. So if we were talking about which cosmological force has the most conviction, that would most likely be the light. But if we're talking in pure strength, the light seems to be very one-dimensional in what it wants, in what it believes, and how it wants to move forward, and that is it, right? The light refuses to do anything that does not fit into that little corner of its universe, so to speak. If we're talking about pure power, how much pure power have we ever seen from the light? It took a considerable amount of power from the light to defeat the Herald of Zuval. Not even Zuval himself, just the Herald of Zuval. Not only that, but we have evidence of both the light and the void attacking the Shadowlands. In Bastion, there's a quest that you do with one of the Kyrians, one of the Ascended, where they tell you about the light and the void, and they call both of those powers inconsequential. They basically make out these powers to be, I don't know, small change, if you will. As if the light and the void really barely even matter. But then again, we do have evidence that both the light and the void attacked the Shadowlands and got beaten badly. They did do a lot of damage, and they weren't easy to defeat, but they were defeated in the end. And so I think there is a very real argument to be made then that while the light and the void may be powerful, perhaps they're not quite as powerful as, at least for now, the Shadowlands, if we believe that the Shadowlands is death. I mean, it's a very difficult question to answer. How powerful is the light in comparison to other forces? Because in terms of real world, the only real world example we really have of the light and the light going against a specific force would be where the light was attacking Arthas, right? And with our help, the light ultimately managed to defeat Arthas. But outside of that, there's very few examples of the light actually taking on another cosmological force. We do know that the light is scared of the foul, but that's true for the void as well. Both the void and the light is fearful of the foul. That could be because the foul is unpredictable and it makes it very difficult to fight, or it could be that the foul is really powerful and they don't really want to go into a battle with the foul at full strength. I would say my final answer on the light and its power levels would be weaker or similar to the cosmological forces, not greater. And I'm basing that purely on Steve Denuser and his interview that sort of made that the general theory, so to speak. I don't really know where else to go with it, to be quite honest. So Moon Pat, if you ever see this stream, I apologize. I don't think anyone can really answer it. We can check here. We have one comment says, I think you would put the 6 cosmic forces into a fight, one-on-one, they're all equal of power, maybe losing to each other in a stone, paper, scissors situation. The light is probably always as strong as the wielder, as with all forces, but Anduin raising, or at least healing, his whole army in front of Lordaeron City comes to mind as well as the orbitable laser of the Lightforged army. We don't know much about Ural's army on AD, but they seem to be pretty brutal as well. Then again, they are fighting savages. When it comes to Ural and her army, they were fighting savages. They weren't fighting an orc nation united and actually capable of putting up any sort of fight. So I wouldn't say that that was really a fair fight. Anduin being able to raise, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I believe it's equal. At best equal, at worst most likely a little bit less powerful. I believe its power comes from its convictions, and I believe that if one of its users holds its convictions strong enough, there's very little that can change that, and that could really become very powerful. But it would be down to the individual user, much like Telian said here. I do not believe that it would be a case of the cosmological force itself being all that powerful.